Russia is now being blamed. Russia is now being blamed for amplifying the battle between Fox News host Laura Ingraham, and Russia is now being attributed to defending Laura Ingraham, who disgracefully attacked one of the Parkland shootings. One of the Parkland students who has been active calling for gun control. So if you see the headline here, Business Insider, Russian bots are rallying behind embattled Fox News host Laura Ingraham as advertisers have decided to dump her show. Laura Ingraham insulted this student, I believe last week. His name is David Huff. Yeah, David Hogg, excuse me. So, as companies yanked their ads from Fox News commentator Laura Ingraham's show in droves, she continues to draw support from one key Twitter demographic, Russian bots. The advertiser exodus comes after Ingraham insulted Parkland shooting survivor David Hogg's grades on Twitter, which is absurd. Like, why would, I don't get, even from Fox News, why would a Fox News host insult a student's grades who was just almost had his brains blown out in school? Like, is there anything these wacko doodle conservatives like Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity won't say? Anyway, the Fox News host announced Saturday she would be taking a, quote, pre-planned vacation amid the controversy. Yeah, my ass, it was pre-planned. On Saturday evening, hashtag #IStandWithLaura was the top trending hashtag among Twitter accounts linked to a Russian influence operation, according to Hamilton 68, a website launched last year that tracks Russian propaganda campaign in real time. Per the site's data, the frequency with which the accounts tweeted the hashtag jumped by 2,800% on Friday and Saturday. Meanwhile, according to the website botcheck.b, which says it tracks 1,500, quote, political propaganda bots, Ingraham Angle, at David Hogg, and at Fox News were among the top 6 Twitter handles Russia-linked accounts tweeted at over the last 24 hours. The top 2 word phrases were, quote, David Hogg and, quote, Laura Ingraham. So you might say, well, what's the problem, Jordan? Like, if Russian bots are trying to dip their toe in the crazy right-wing sand and trying to defend Laura Ingraham, or as the media says, help sow division in America, why are you going at it? Because it's not true. That's why. They are now alleging that Russian bots helped make Bernie Sanders' movement as large as it was. They're alleging that Russian bots infiltrated Black Lives Matter rallies and made them bigger than they are. They're alleging that Russian bots infiltrated the Standing Rock movement and made that movement bigger. I mean, what are they going to say? What are they going to say next? You know, Russian bots infiltrated the March for Lives march that just happened, and they made that bigger. They're going to say Russian bots were really responsible for us landing on the moon. Not only is it not true because it's absurd, but it's not true because this group, Hamilton 68, have actually said not to believe them. This is from BuzzFeed. Headline: Stop blaming the Russian bots for everything. Quote, I'm not convinced on this bot thing, said one of the men behind the Russian bot thing. I mean, you can't make this up. It's so stupid. By now, you know the drill. Massive news events happens, journalists scramble to figure out what's going on, and within a couple hours, the culprit is found. Russian bots. Hold on, I need to go get my Russian vodka. Russian bots were blamed for driving attention to the Nunes memo. Russian bots, a Republican-authored document on the Trump-Russia probe. They were blamed for pushing for Roy Moore to win an Alabama special election. And here they are wading into the gun debate following the Parkland shooting. Quote, the messages from the automated accounts or bots were designed to widen the divide and make compromise even more difficult, wrote the New York Times in a story following the shooting, citing little more than, quote, Twitter accounts suspected of having links to Russia. This is not, to mince words, total bullshit. Just to be clear, this is coming from BuzzFeed, which is like a digital site, but it's kind of becoming a little establishment too. So I'm going to read you further, but this is coming from Russia. It's coming from BuzzFeed, not me. I agree with it, but this is coming from BuzzFeed. The thing is, nearly every time you see a story blaming Russian bots for something, you can be pretty sure that the story can be traced back to a single source. The Hamilton 68 dashboard, founded by a group of respected researchers, including Clint Wantz and J.M. Berger, and currently run under the auspices of the German Marshall Fund. But even some of the people who popularized that metric now acknowledge it's become totally overblown. Quote, "I'm not convinced on this bot thing," said Watts, the co-founder of a project that is widely cited as the main, if not only, source of information on Russian bots. He also called the narrative, quote, "overdone." The dashboard monitors 600 Twitter accounts, quote, "linked to Russian influence efforts online," according to its own description, which means the accounts are not all directly traced back to Kremlin efforts or even necessarily to Russia. Quote, "They are not all in Russia," Watts said during a phone interview last week. Quote, "We don't even think they are all commanded in Russia at all. We think some of them are legitimately passionate people that are just really into promoting Russia. So, not bots." We'll likely never know the contents of the list for sure because the researchers declined to divulge the identity of who they are monitoring. Let me get that straight. We will likely never know the contents of the list for sure because the researchers declined to divulge the identity of who they are monitoring. Parentheses. The reasons they give for secrecy include worries that the accounts would then change their behavior and concerns over identifying accounts that are not, in fact, linked to Russian influence efforts, aka making a mistake. So that's strike one. In what other world would we rely on a single source tool of anonymous provenance in corporate journalism, where the majority of these breaking news stories about Russia come from one unnamed official, typically the CIA? So why if Hamilton Dashboard 68, which by the way is led by Democratic Party elites that like Hillary Clinton, why would they not divulge which accounts they're monitoring? You know what this sounds like to me? You ever hear of something called the Committee on Un-American Activities in the 1940s and 50s? J. Edgar Hoover, former Attorney General, was very prominent in that. And this was during the Red Scare and the Cold War hysteria, where the government was essentially calling Hollywood, very worried about those Hollywood actors that could have been communists, or the little old lady down the street who could have been communists. And they rarely had any evidence other than mass speculation and hysteria. And the same government officials who were in charge of this committee, the Committee on Un-American Activity, didn't want to divulge who they were monitoring. Does this sound familiar to anyone? And let me be clear, and I've said it all along, if evidence comes out that the Trump campaign worked with the Russian government to infiltrate Hillary Clinton's emails or the DNC's emails and release them, I think the Trump campaign should be penalized. I think Trump should be penalized. Whether you like Hillary Clinton or not, when a campaign works with a foreign government to sabotage an opponent, that's pretty scandalous. The only problem is there hasn't been any evidence provided of such. And every single day we get insane stories that Russian troll farms are infiltrating Black Lives Matter and Standing Rock and Bernie Sanders' campaign and What I Had for Lunch. And that's why these things are happening, because Russian trolls. So Laura Ingraham was trending Saturday night because, or I stand with Laura, the hashtag, because Russian bots were boosting her up. It doesn't even make sense. And the corporate media, including the Washington Post, Business Insider, and all these sites, who is their main source for this? Hamilton Dashboard 68. Hamilton Dashboard 68, who literally, the co-founder said, "I'm not convinced of this bot thing." Called the narrative, quote, "overdone." The dashboard monitors 600 Twitter accounts, quote, "linked to Russian influence efforts online." What does that even mean? Am I one of the accounts they're monitoring? Because I ask questions or speak truth to power? Am I part of the Russian influence machine? Is the modern day Committee on Un-American Activity in the social media era going to target me next? I mean, they're all calling Glenn Greenwald a friggin' Kremlin puppet, which is absurd. Lee Camp, same thing. And they won't even say who is it they are looking at. The researchers declined to divulge the identity of who they are monitoring. I mean, if this is not Big Brother, if this ain't Big Brother activity, I don't know what is. All this nonsense about Russian trolls are propping up Laura Ingraham or propping up Bernie Sanders' campaign. Thank you, Vivian Malut, who just pledged $2 to my Patreon. Thank you very much, Vivian. You are going to help me get this media company off the ground. I mean, what will they not blame? What will they not blame Russian trolls for? Are they going to say, Russian trolls are responsible if progressives win, if there's a progressive surge in the midterm elections? And are they going to say Russian trolls were responsible if God comes down and helps Debbie Wasserman Schultz lose? I just did a story yesterday about her primary challenger, Tim Canova, has just left the Democratic Party. They're going to say Russian trolls are responsible if she loses? They're definitely going to say Russian trolls are responsible if Bernie Sanders ever gets in the White House. And they're going to immediately call for a committee on how Russian trolls help Bernie Sanders get elected. I mean, it's to the point now where it's exhausting because it's so stupid. And it's intellectually dishonest, these reports. And by the way, my Twitter following has gone down because I had bots. I had bots following my account. This dashboard, Hamilton 68, we don't know what Twitter accounts they're looking at. The co-founder said it's overblown. He doesn't know about the bot thing. And they're saying they don't even know if these are people truly affiliated with Russia. Yet the Washington Post and the Business Insider are just reporting whatever Hamilton Dashboard 68 tells them. Kind of sounds like just reporting whatever the CIA tells them.